Ever notice how the loudest person in the room is usually the one least in control? Here's something scandalously simple. The real power move is silence, not the awkward bite your tongue kind. We're talking about a kind of silence that can snap you out of the performance act we all end up doing, pretending, posturing, polishing our image just to win invisible gold stars from people who aren't even watching. The Stoics? They were the original anti-influencers. They knew that chasing applause or shrinking in fear of judgment was the fastest way to become someone else's puppet. Opinions change like weather. If you're living for likes, digital or otherwise, you're already off course. But what if success, peace, and actual joy came not from chasing, but from shutting up and tuning in? Self-mastery, according to the Stoics, isn't about controlling others. It's about controlling yourself. Imagine living in a world obsessed with dopamine hits and TikTok takes, and choosing instead to go inward. That's not just bold. That's revolutionary. See, focusing on yourself isn't selfish. It's strategic. It's about building something that can't be taken from you. Clarity, intention, discipline. You stop being a people-pleasing shapeshifter and become someone even you can trust. The world wants you distracted, loud, scattered. But silence? Silence lets you reorganize your mind like a cluttered desk. You clear out the junk, you see what's real. When you go quiet, the real thoughts rise to the surface. The stuff you've been avoiding, it starts speaking. And now, you're in charge. That's when the magic starts. Your priorities shift. You start filtering out the noise, ads, opinions, toxic cycles, and recalibrating based on your values, not society's checklist. You start hearing others too, not just their words, but what's behind them. Because when you're no longer performing, you finally get real connection. And that's rare. Here's what most people never learn. Silence isn't passive. It's a power play. It builds patience. It sharpens your focus. It toughens your skin without hardening your heart. And it doesn't just heal the mind. Studies now say it literally lowers your blood pressure, reduces stress, boosts creativity. Silence is the new gym membership for your soul. Jordan from True Story says this: if you're brave enough to go quiet in a world addicted to noise, you're already ahead of the game. Because the ones who master silence, they're not escaping the world. They're learning how to own it without having to shout. Here's something nobody told you at 25. Silence isn't just golden, it's bulletproof. In a world where everyone's yelling their truth louder than the last guy, the ones who shut up and listen, they start seeing things the rest of us miss. The unspoken, the real intentions, the trap before it's sprung. You ever meet someone who speaks less, but when they do talk, the room listens? That's not charisma. That's control. Silence sharpens the mind like a blade, because when you're not wasting your words, you're saving your energy for the kill shot. And here's the kicker. Silence doesn't just protect your peace, it upgrades it. Better sleep, higher focus, more creativity. Even your appreciation for life's little joys, like coffee that hits right or finally getting the perfect parking spot, suddenly spikes. Why? Because you're present, not lost in noise. Now, let's clear something up. Cultivating silence doesn't mean turning into a monk with Wi-Fi. It means knowing when to speak and when to let the silence do the talking. It's walking away from dumb arguments, not because you're passive, but because you're tactical. Strategic silence is the sexiest form of self-control. In negotiations, it's lethal. In conflict, it's dominance with a smile. Start with 10 minutes. No talking, no texting, no pretending to meditate while scrolling. Just observe your mind like it's a reality show you didn't sign up for. Watch the drama unfold. You'll see patterns, triggers, distractions, and maybe even where you've been sabotaging your own peace. The more you do it, the more you'll find silence sneaking into your day, during your commute, before bed, while everyone else is screaming over nothing. That's when you know it's working, when quiet becomes your new flex. Lesson 2, the art of mindful focus. Here's where it gets even more interesting. Most people think focusing on yourself means being self-absorbed. Truth is, it's the opposite. It's about being fully awake to your own life, not hypnotized by everyone else's. The Stoics? They didn't invent calm under pressure, but they perfected it. Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react." And if that's not the ultimate mic drop, I don't know what is. When you ditch the external distractions and start actually paying attention to your own inner GPS, things shift. You stop drifting and start directing. Your moves get sharper, your intentions cleaner. That lost feeling, gone. You stop blaming the algorithm, your boss, your parents, your ex, and you start owning your next move. That's not self-help. That's self-discipline, and it builds a kind of confidence that doesn't need backup dancers. Because the moment you stop outsourcing your worth to likes, claps, or compliments, you win. You become your own source of motivation, and that's rare air. You begin to see what drives you, what drains you, and what you've outgrown. And when you operate from that awareness, you stop chasing empty validation and start creating something real. Over time, this focus grows into something wild, independence. Not the fake kind people post about with number freedom. Real, lived autonomy. You make choices based on what you value, not what society guilt-tripped you into. You don't flinch when people criticize you. You don't crumble when others don't clap. You're walking your path, not theirs. And best of all, the comparison game dies. You no longer measure your progress with someone else's ruler because you're too focused on building your own empire to notice who's watching. So yeah, silence and self-focus, they're not trendy habits. They're ancient weapons. And once you start using them, life doesn't just get quieter. It gets clearer. Most people spend their lives performing for an audience that isn't even paying attention. And that's the trap. You start living to prove something. To your boss, your ex, your old high school teacher who said you'd peak at 17. But here's the twist. The more you try to impress them, the less impressive you feel. The Stoics called it like it is. The key to contentment isn't applause, it's alignment. When your actions match your values, not your insecurities, you unlock a version of yourself that doesn't need outside approval to feel whole. This isn't about ignoring the world, it's about choosing what matters. When you ditch the pressure to perform, you stop chasing validation and start chasing purpose. And oddly enough, that's when people really start noticing. You want real progress? Set goals in silence, not because you're hiding them, but because your energy is too valuable to waste explaining your vision to people who can't see it. Now here's where most people go wrong. They try to focus on themselves, but keep getting yanked around by other people's noise. That coworker who wants to gossip, That cousin who thinks you should be married by now. That one comment on Facebook that still lives in your head rent-free. Mindfulness isn't a candlelit ritual, it's survival. It's learning how to stay here, in the moment, when everything else is trying to drag you somewhere else. It anchors you in your reality, so you're not haunted by the past or paralyzed by the future. Try this. List 2 things. First, what you can control, your effort, your mindset, your reactions. Then, what you can't, like other people's opinions, traffic, or whether Mercury is in retrograde. Now imagine only spending energy on column 1. That's not just productivity, that's peace. Create a daily ritual, not to be trendy, but to keep your head on straight. Maybe it's a few deep breaths before you check your phone. A question you ask yourself in the mirror. What actually matters today? Tiny anchors, placed with intention, can keep you from drifting off into the chaos. Lesson 3. The discipline of staying silent. Let's get real. Silence isn't passive, it's powerful. It's how you observe a room before you enter it. It's how you control a conversation without saying a word. It's how you learn who's real and who just likes the sound of their own voice. Seneca said, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so we can listen twice as much as we speak." Translation, shut up and listen. It's your most underused superpower. When you stop talking, a few things happen. You avoid drama, you avoid looking foolish, and most importantly, you actually hear what's not being said. That's where the gold is, in the gaps, in the pauses, in what people leave out. Practicing silence is how you build emotional intelligence. You don't fire back in anger. You don't overshare in insecurity. You give your thoughts room to mature before they make an appearance. And when you finally do speak, people notice. Because it's rare, and rare things carry weight. Silence isn't just for monks and mysterious CEOs, it's for you. In that meeting where you're tempted to chime in just to prove something, it's for you. When your friend says something shady and you want to clap back with a one-liner, it's for you. When life gets loud and you need a moment to remember who you are. True story, the loudest person in the room rarely has the most power. So next time you're tempted to fill the silence, ask yourself, am I adding value or just avoiding the discomfort of stillness? Because sometimes the strongest move you can make is none at all. Here's a hard truth nobody wants to hear. Most of your mental exhaustion isn't from work, it's from reacting to texts, to comments, to conversations you didn't even want to be in. And the most dangerous energy leak? Talking when you should have stayed silent. See, silence isn't just peaceful, it's protective. Every time you choose not to clap back, not to correct someone who isn't listening anyway, or not to dive into a pointless argument, you save a piece of yourself, your time, your peace, your edge. Silence is the grown-up version of a superpower. It tells people, I know exactly who I am. I don't need to prove it. Think about how many times you left a conversation feeling drained, like someone stole your mental wallet. That's what happens when you treat your attention like it's free. The Stoics knew better. They treated silence like sacred ground, not because they didn't have anything to say, but because they knew when to speak and when to hold the high ground. And in the digital world, silence is even more radical. When you choose not to engage in every comment war, every political rant, every group chat that spirals into chaos, you don't just stay sane, you stay sharp. Scrolling is the new smoking. Most people don't even realize how addicted they are to being constantly available, but the more you respond to everything, the more your brain forgets how to rest. Try this. Go silent for one day. No mindless chatter, no filler conversations, just you, doing what actually matters. It'll feel weird at first, like walking barefoot in public. But by the end, you'll feel 10 pounds lighter. That's your mental weight dropping. Now, we shift gears. Lesson 4. Building inner strength through solitude. This one hits hard. Solitude gets a bad rep. Everyone confuses it with loneliness. Like, if you're not surrounded by people, something must be wrong. But here's the twist. Solitude is where real power hides. It's not isolation. It's reconnection to your own damn thoughts. The Stoics didn't just dabble in solitude, they sought it out. Why? Because when you're alone, the world stops pulling your strings. You stop performing. You stop pretending. And for once, you get to hear what your own voice actually sounds like. Solitude strips away the noise and leaves you face to face with something most people avoid their entire lives. The truth that you're stronger than you thought, that some of your dreams weren't yours to begin with, that maybe, just maybe, you've been too busy chasing approval to notice your own soul waving a white flag. In solitude, you don't fall apart, you recalibrate. It's where creativity wakes up from its nap, where ideas land without interruption. Some of the greatest minds in history, Einstein, Tesla, even Beyoncé during her Lemonade era, tapped into solitude to pull brilliance out of thin air. It's where the fog lifts, where you figure out what you actually want, not just what Instagram told you to want. And here's the kicker. Solitude isn't just good for ideas, it's essential for resilience. When you get good at being alone, you don't chase validation. You don't fold under pressure. You don't crumble when plans change or people disappoint you, because you've already built a relationship with the only person who never leaves the room. You. Solitude teaches you how to self-soothe without distractions. No Netflix, no doom scrolling, no wine pretending to be self-care. Just you and your mind, learning to sit in discomfort and come out the other side calmer, clearer, colder. So the next time life gets loud, don't reach for the noise. Retreat, reflect, refocus. Because sometimes the biggest plot twist in your story is realizing you were the main character all along. You know what's wilder than silence? Choosing to be alone on purpose and actually loving it. Not because you're antisocial, but because you figured out something most people don't learn until it's too late. The most dangerous distraction isn't your phone. It's other people's noise inside your head. Solitude isn't punishment. It's power in plain clothes. It's where you go to clean out the emotional junk drawer. All those regrets you stuffed behind ambition. All the what-ifs stuck on replay. In solitude, there's no one to impress, no audience to please, just you and the brutal honesty of your own thoughts. That's where the real upgrades happen. You get to audit your habits, not because someone posted a motivational quote, but because you finally have the bandwidth to ask yourself, am I living or just performing a role I outgrew 5 years ago? And here's the twist. Solitude doesn't shrink you, it expands you. It's a greenhouse for personal evolution. You start setting goals that actually matter, not flashy ones, but the kind that align with who you're becoming, not who you used to be. It's also where creativity kicks the door in. When no one's watching, judging, or comparing, your brain finally feels safe enough to create instead of copy. You don't just think outside the box. You realize you were never in one to begin with. Solitude gives you back your edge. You stop apologizing for needing space. You stop waiting for applause to validate your decisions. You stop handing out VIP access to people who've never earned it. And if you want to turn this into a real-life ritual, schedule it. Seriously. Build your own mental cave, whether it's journaling, meditating, walking in silence, or just staring out the window like a Victorian ghost. Do it on purpose. The more time you spend with yourself, the less you'll rely on distractions to feel okay. The more clarity you'll have about who stays in your life and who just stays in your phone. Now, let's rip the Band-Aid off the next truth. Lesson 5. Cutting out distractions and noise. Let's not sugarcoat it. Your attention span's probably being held hostage right now by pings, pop-ups, passive-aggressive group chats. Oh, and that one app you open 87 times a day to avoid your actual to-do list. You know the one. But here's what the Stoics knew 2,000 years ago that we still haven't figured out. Distractions are the enemy of destiny. Marcus Aurelius didn't say, "Do not disturb," because he hated people. He said it because being mentally scattered is how empires fall. Slowly, then all at once. And in today's world, distraction isn't just annoying, it's an addiction dressed as productivity. You feel busy, but you're just buffering. Every scroll, every notification, every pointless conversation, it's like giving away slices of your brain for free. And let's not forget the internal distractions. Overthinking, imposter syndrome, spiraling about things you can't control. It's like being stuck in your own Netflix original. But you're the writer, director, and stressed out lead. The fix isn't deleting everything and moving to the woods. It's learning how to focus like it's a survival skill. Because it is. Focus is how you finish, how you rise above the noise, how you stop living on default and start living on purpose. Start with a purge. What's stealing your time and giving you nothing back? Start cutting. Make your phone boring again. Put limits on social apps. Turn off notifications unless your house is literally on fire. Create no-fly zones in your day. Hours where no one gets access to you. That's not selfish, it's self-preservation. And here's the twist. Distraction is rarely about what's happening outside of you. It's about what you're avoiding inside. When you clear the clutter, uncomfortable truths show up. But so does clarity, direction, energy, peace. Distraction keeps you in survival mode. Focus? That's how you build something worth surviving for. Lesson 6. Cultivating self-discipline. Let's get one thing straight. Most people don't fail because they're lazy. They fail because they're addicted to comfort disguised as productivity. You tell yourself you're resting when you're really just hiding from your own potential, scrolling, snacking, daydreaming about the life you're not building. That's where self-discipline kicks in. Not the kind that feels like punishment, the kind that feels like freedom, the kind that turns a maybe someday into done before noon. The Stoics were onto something big. They didn't believe in waiting for motivation. They believed in becoming the kind of person who shows up whether they feel like it or not. Because here's the ugly truth nobody wants to say out loud. Temptation isn't random. It's always waiting for you at your weakest moment, right after the fight, right before the breakthrough. During the 5th episode of that show, you promised you'd stop binging. Discipline means saying no when your future self needs you to. It's choosing purpose over pleasure, growth over gossip, long-term over likes. And no, it's not about going full monk mode and giving up joy. It's about filtering the noise so you can actually hear your own thoughts. It's about creating a routine so solid your goals start running on autopilot. Wake up early. Move your body. Eat like you respect yourself. Reflect before you react. Track your progress like it owes you money. Small things. Every day. That's how the giants are built. And when it gets hard, when it's boring, when no one claps, that's when you double down. Because that's the part that separates dreamers from finishers. Self-discipline is sexy in silence. Nobody sees you passing on the shortcut. Nobody notices the sacrifices. But when the results hit, oh, they'll swear it was luck. Now let's peel back another layer of this. Lesson 7. Strengthening mental resilience. Let's get real. If discipline is the engine, resilience is the armor. You can build a perfect plan, but if you fold every time life throws a curveball, you'll be back at square one again and again and again. The Stoics had this wild idea that pain isn't punishment, it's preparation. Every setback, a mental gym, every failure, a forced upgrade. They trained themselves to expect adversity, not fear it. They didn't ask, why me? They asked, what's this teaching me? That mindset is a game changer, because once you accept that hardship isn't optional, but your reaction is, you start becoming dangerous in the best way. Resilience means staying grounded when everything feels unstable. It's getting up without drama, moving forward without applause. It's realizing that silence, solitude, and setbacks aren't weaknesses. They're the training grounds for power. So when people doubt you, criticize you, leave you out, you don't panic. You observe, you reframe, and then you keep going, quietly, relentlessly. Want to build that level of mental steel? Start documenting your storms. Literally, keep a resilience journal. Write down the hit. Write down how you bounced back. Remind yourself that you always do. That's not a diary. That's evidence. Proof that you don't break. You bend, you stretch, but you don't fold. Because once you stop fearing discomfort, the world stops controlling you. Lesson 8. Embracing self-awareness. Let's start with a twist you weren't expecting. Most people don't fear failure. They fear meeting the unfiltered version of themselves in silence. Because when the world goes quiet, all that's left is you. And suddenly, the motivational quotes stop working. That's where the Stoics dropped the mic. Seneca said, "He who is everywhere is nowhere." Translation: you can't build a masterpiece if you keep ghosting your own blueprint. Self-awareness isn't about becoming a better person in public. It's about stopping the internal lies you tell yourself in private. You think you're self-aware? Try sitting in silence for 10 minutes without checking your phone, mentally reliving arguments from 2013 or planning fake conversations where you finally get the last word. The Stoics practiced radical self-examination, not the filtered kind you post online. The brutal, honest inventory. Strengths, flaws, triggers, patterns. That moment when you realize, oh, I am the drama. And here's where it gets real. Self-awareness gives you power, not perfection. It lets you choose your response instead of reacting on autopilot. It helps you know when you're chasing purpose or just approval. When you actually understand your emotions and behavior, why you shut down in conflict, why you procrastinate right before success, why you stay in loops that hurt, you unlock a type of control that's terrifying and liberating. The Stoics didn't just think about their day, they interrogated it. Daily journaling wasn't for aesthetic, it was for survival. Because clarity isn't a vibe, it's a weapon. Want to try it? Document the day like it's evidence in a trial. What triggered you? What made you proud? What lesson punched you in the face when you weren't looking? Now, pair that with time alone. Real solitude, not scrolling in the dark. That's when the breakthroughs sneak in. Because self-awareness isn't about becoming someone new. It's about finally meeting who you've been avoiding. Lesson 9. Practicing humility and letting go of ego. Here's the twist nobody sees coming. Your ego isn't loud. It's sneaky. It pretends to protect you, but really, it's sabotaging every room you enter. It's the voice that needs to win the argument, the itch to post the perfect life, the refusal to say, I messed up. And the Stoics? They were obsessed with cutting that voice down to size. They believed humility wasn't about being quiet. It was about being accurate. Because the second you start chasing applause, you lose direction. You become a puppet for validation, dancing for strangers who won't remember your name next week. True humility says, I don't need to be the smartest in the room. I need to learn from the room. It's knowing you're still evolving, even if you're 40, 50, 60. Especially then. And when you let go of ego, something magical happens. You stop defending your flaws and start fixing them. You stop proving your worth and start living it. Humility doesn't shrink your confidence, it stabilizes it. Because when you're not obsessed with being right, you make room to get it right. The Stoics taught that success and failure are both illusions. Fleeting, unstable. Ego clings to both. Humility floats above them. And it's not just about your growth. Humility changes your relationships. You stop needing to win. You start needing to connect. You don't avoid feedback. You hunt for it. Because when your self-worth isn't tied to your ego, criticism feels like a gift, not an attack. Let's be clear. This isn't soft. This is strength disguised as silence. The person who doesn't need to prove anything, that's the most dangerous one in the room. Lesson 9. Continued. The humility plot twist. No one talks about. Here's the part about humility that never trends, but should. Humility isn't just a moral virtue. It's a social superpower. It lets you walk into any room without needing to prove you belong there. And ironically, that's what makes people pay attention. When you drop the ego, you start hearing people, not just waiting for your turn to speak. You stop editing their words through your own insecurities. That's when conversations stop being battles and start becoming bridges. Humility in relationships is like a secret decoder ring. It helps you read what's really going on beneath the words. You begin to recognize that not every disagreement is a betrayal. Sometimes it's just two hurt kids in grown-up bodies trying to feel seen. And then comes the kicker. Humility doesn't just improve your personal life. It'll quietly level up your career. Ever notice how the best leaders aren't the loudest in the room? They're the ones asking questions, taking notes, and owning their mistakes before anyone points them out. That's humility in action. It's not weakness. It's strategic self-awareness. In a world obsessed with fake it till you make it, humility says, how about learn it and then own it? You grow faster when you're not pretending you've already arrived. You collaborate better when your pride isn't tripping over every correction. And here's a power move. Express gratitude to mentors, to critics, even to people who forced you to grow by being a pain in the ass. Why? Because it shifts your mindset from defensiveness to dominance, the kind that doesn't need to shout. Make it a habit. Acknowledge your blind spots. Stay teachable. And suddenly, you become the kind of person people want to follow, not just tolerate. Lesson 10. Living with purpose and intention. Now let's talk about the part where it all starts to click. The big reveal in your own origin story. Living with purpose, not passion, not vibes. Purpose, that quiet, uncomfortable truth that keeps tugging at you even when you've numbed out on distractions. The Stoics weren't out here chasing the next shiny thing. They were stripping life down to the essentials, what actually matters. And once they found it, they doubled down. Purpose isn't about having a perfect plan. It's about making decisions that mean something even when no one's watching. It's the difference between reacting and responding, between being pulled by life and piloting it. And here's where it gets juicy. Living intentionally means giving up the comforting chaos of busyness. You stop using distractions as a lifestyle. You start questioning, why am I doing this? Whose dream am I chasing? Living with purpose feels like rebellion in a world that profits off your confusion. It's not glamorous. It's gritty. It's setting boundaries, even when they make you look selfish. It's prioritizing depth over popularity. It's saying no to things that once gave you identity. And here's what the Stoics knew that we forget. Purpose hurts sometimes because it forces you to outgrow versions of yourself you once loved. But on the other side, a weird, supernatural clarity, a life that fits, not because it's easy, but because it's yours. So how do you live it? Set intentions that feel like uncomfortable truths, not just inspirational quotes. Reflect, adjust, evolve every damn day. Stop romanticizing the comfort zone. It's just a holding cell with nice curtains. Embrace the friction. That's where the transformation lives. And when you do that, you don't just become focused. You become dangerous in the best way. Because a person living with intention, they stop playing defense. They start designing their own legacy. Lesson 10. Continued. The kind of silence that screams power. Let's get one thing straight. The kind of silence we're talking about here isn't passive. It's not giving up. It's strategic withdrawal from the circus. So you can build something they won't see coming. This isn't about meditating on a mountain in linen pants. It's about making room to think. So your next move isn't just louder, it's smarter. See, real power doesn't beg for attention. It moves differently, quietly, intentionally, like a plot twist you never saw coming. The Stoics had this wild idea that happiness wasn't tied to your salary, your relationship status, or whether your vacation made it to Instagram. They believed fulfillment came from living in alignment with your values. That's right, values, not vibes. And that hits hard Because how many of us are grinding every day for goals we didn't even set? When you live with purpose, every challenge stops feeling like an interruption. It becomes evidence that you're building something real. It's not about dodging discomfort. It's about learning to sit in the fire until your old self burns off. Because growth isn't cute. It's messy, loud on the inside, and invisible to everyone else, until one day it's undeniable. Here's the real plot twist: the silence. That's where the clarity lives. It's where the noise of the world fades just enough for you to finally hear yourself. You start asking different questions. Not, what do they think of me? But, what do I know about me? That's where resilience is born. Not from shouting affirmations in the mirror, but from surviving the quiet moments where quitting felt easier than continuing. Now, intentional living isn't sexy on the surface. It looks like routines, boundaries, saying no when yes would be more convenient. But every one of those small choices becomes a brick in the empire you're building. Make no mistake, this is rebellion against mediocrity, against distraction, against the pressure to perform instead of exist. And yeah, it's lonely sometimes, but loneliness and alignment aren't the same thing. One leaves you empty, the other makes you whole. Define your values like their GPS coordinates. Adjust your course often, not because you're lost, but because you're honest. And if you're looking for practical steps, try these on for size. Track your goals like they're assets, not chores. Reflect daily, even if it's just for 5 minutes. Express gratitude like it's armor, because it is. Surround yourself with people who aren't impressed by your performance, but inspired by your persistence. Because here's the truth: when you stop chasing applause, you start making real progress. When you focus inward, you build the kind of foundation that earthquakes can't shake. And that's when people notice, not because you shouted, but because your silence screamed. Let your stillness be your strategy. Let your actions be your autobiography. And let your discipline do the talking, louder than your ego ever could.